and the imagined life of Redmond in which we're gathered tonight. In short, we were creating a community, and to my mind, a community that is just what communities should be. A blend of yesterday and today, the real and the imaginary, each elevating the other into the possible. The work you will hear tonight is not merely history, it's today looking back in wonder, connecting to the humanity in the people and places that endured for 100 years and more. The seven of us have surely lived with ghosts these past few months and come to love them and thank them for letting us recreate them in the service of art. Tonight, we hope you will join us in our new community and welcome them back, and perhaps carry them around with you, as we have, when you go out and live among these streets and neighborhoods, these parks and schools, these businesses and gathering places like the one we're gathered at tonight. And should anyone in another 100 years come across these images and our words, I think all of us would say, jump in here with us. Carry us with you. Imagine us back into being. What poet wouldn't love that? I would like for you all to join me in welcoming the remarkable group of poets whose work you're going to hear tonight. Sometimes people ask that applause be held till the end. Not me. Give it all you've got. They deserve it and more. Please welcome R.T. John, Adora Svitak, Allison Olinger, Denise Calvetti-Michaels, Elizabeth Carol Hayden, and Maya Ganesan. So Craig, our first image. Excellent. We're doing these in chronological order because it seemed like a good idea to move ourselves from the past up toward the present. The year here is unknown. The children are Hazel and Elizabeth Davis of the Snoqualmie, the first people to live here. When I was looking at this photo, all I could think about was the question in that girl's eyes. So this is the question that they asked of me. Who will? Who will tell the story of the sisters and the fawn, of how we stood with her looking and how she looked only at us? Who will tell of I, mother, and sheets whiter than sun hung from trees that reached to sky country? Who will tell the story of the dear child and how she was so wild when she grew, she went as her people have gone to fill our bellies, even though we loved her? And how this life takes everything you have. Who will think of us and tell of us, and who will know who we were? Snoqualmie, parent, child, whitetail, fur, sheets, sun, rough-hewn, fine-spun, domestic, wild, for this moment alive, for this moment, staring off toward what all people stare toward. For us, in this moment, it is you. Tell our story. Who will tell yours? I think I should explain that we have all written to these images, so you will get several poems, each with a unique vision of this image.
The fawn. White sheets, like sails, separate, a fence to the forest. She stands, straight-eyed, no fear, not of the camera or the small deer eating the leaf from her hand. White sheets drape like sails, separated from the forest. She stands straight and eyes the child holding the leaf. She eats, no fear of the camera. Mama watches from the back. Apron like a sail, only draped sheets separate home from the forest. She stares straight, eyes watching her child with the leaf, fear, but not of the camera. Doe eyes, watching behind sheets draped like sails. Fear she can't feed her. A white fence separates her and her forest from her small deer eating a leaf from the child.
There are varied numbers of poems written to each image. The year is 1887, when the first Redmond school stood just across the street from where Anderson Park now stands. In looking at this group photo, I wondered about how they felt about themselves in this new place and what relationships were these people forming with one another. This is called The Edge. When we were on the edge of the world, we believed we could do anything. When those maps read, "Here there be dragons," they were talking about us. We said, if we need it, we build it. If we can't build it, we don't need it. We've carved ourselves out of the land by sweat and blood and the occasional good time, and if you can't do the same, don't come. We'll be just fine for one more day without you. When we were on the edge of the world, we had each other, befriended one another, hated one another, loved one another, bruised one another, married one another, buried one another, loved this place like it came from God's own hand, and we were golden under the low gray sky. When we were on the edge of the world, we worked like Hercules at his labors and played like Bacchus at the brink. And when the world came to meet us with its soft promises and ease, we sighed ourselves into it with gratitude for the hard life we left behind. And yet,
In looking at this photo, I was really asking myself, where are they all going to go? And the answer to that question is the title of my poem, No One Knows. No one knows where Nell will go, whether she'll ever really settle down with the no-good Jasper's boy, if Alice and Ida are going to teach in Whitman County, where the sky runs big and the wheat is long, if the little boys, Henry and Louis and Joe, will study at all come harvest time, whether the insolent children will ever help teacher get coal. All the good children are going now. How all the kids manage to crowd together into one picture. The world gathers them up into her calloused hands like so many fragments of colored glass, making this mosaic 1 second, the next. The world gathers them up and she scatters them. Disperse, she whispers. They flutter apart like ashes on the wind, break apart and change. The glass goes back to sand, and we walk on the sharp sand beaches of Idlewood Park. We walk on the fragments of glass mosaic of Nell, Alice, Ida, Henry, Louis, and Joe, of Log Cabin Schoolhouse, and years ago.
If I were a photographer, I would only take portraits. Maybe it's because I come to poetry as a fiction writer, but I'm drawn to the characters in these photographs, to the eloquent faces. And the face that drew me most in this picture is the kid standing next to the teacher, who's the only one really smiling. I tried to imagine his character and the American school system of the 1800s that would attempt to squelch that character. The lines from Casabianca are by Florence Hampson, with my apologies. Boy, Redmond Schoolhouse, 1887. They send you to school to learn to read and write and cipher. I guess that's all right, but then they made us to learn poems. The boy stood on the burning deck, whence all but him had fled. The flame that lit the battle's wreck shone round him o'er the dead. I waited so hard to go to school, to be big enough. Now I'm here, I can't hardly wait to get out again. They make you stand in front of the room with your toes on a crack and recite in front of everybody. The flames rolled on. He would not go without his father's word. That father, faint in death below, his voice no longer heard. They ask me every day, what did you learn in school? This was what I learned. One ham sandwich doesn't last a body till supper time. Jesus doesn't listen if you're praying about spelling. Playing hooky is worth the whipping. The boy stood on the burning deck, whence all but he had fled. Pudding head. Didn't he have any sense of his own? Criminy, the ship was on fire. I knew the answer, but my hands weren't clean. I wanted that apple so teacher always shares with Maggie Tosh. It wouldn't be so bad if they let you squirm a bit, but you get strapped for not sitting still. You're made to sit the dunce if you don't know your lesson, and if you cut up the least bit, you're made to sit with the girls. The boy stood on the burning deck. The flames round him did roar. He found a bar of ivory soap and washed himself ashore. Yes, sir. I will not pull Nellie Perigo's hair. I will not pull Nellie Perigo's hair. I will not pull Nellie Perigo's hair. They took our picture at school today, all of us lined up looking proper. Mr. Turner stood me right by him so I wouldn't wriggle or pull a face. That's me there smiling, glad to be out of lessons. I wanted to see all about the camera, but they wouldn't let me. We study natural history, but if you act naturally, you get whooped. They fill up the place with windows, but if you look out of them, you get scolded. It doesn't figure. I imagine you have guessed by now that I don't like school much, and you are right. But it's better than church. At least God is not watching you all the time. With shroud and mast and pennon fair that well had home their part, but the noblest thing that perished there was that young, faithful heart. The end.
I'm on my own. The year is 1898. The location is just where Half Price Books stands today. This poem is one of the oldest forms of poem known, a praise poem. It's simple and direct and loves the hell out of the place. Praise poem for the meat market. Praise for the market that stands at the crossroad. Praise for the crossroad. Praise for the sturdy wagon-hitched horse that trudges the ground to mush. Praise for the mush. Praise for the butcher in his clean apron. Praise for the woman who washes it. Praise for the wildcat and the deer and the bear. Praise for the bones and the blood. Praise, praise for the skin and its blessing of fur and the winter cold that thickened it, and praise for the warmth of fine capes and hats against cold in the years to come. Praise for the things that gather us here and keep us and feed us and do not eat us before we eat them. Praise.
picture, what came to my mind was all the neatly laid out meat packets we find in the supermarkets today. To work, we eat, and the butcher, he feeds. Wild cat, deer, bear, yeah, tough indeed. The game, the hunter, Mr. Rose, the market, the wagon. Consumption and demand to nourish muscle and brain. Wonder if they hung sausages inside. Primitive frame to more powerful eyes. My mind screams. Where have they gone? The fresh, the raw, those smells, the wild wagon rides, some palaver and few nods. I enter the bookstore, somehow lost.
I was intrigued in this photograph by the butcher and his spotless apron and bowler hat, which I believe are attempts to civilize a bloody business. And I'm intrigued with how we seem to try to put distance between the source and the process of our food. This poem is a pantoum, which is an old Malay verse form. And like history, a pantoum depends on repetition and variation. The trick of the craft is to make the lines dovetail in sense and meter, so listen for the repeating lines and see if I got it right. Redmond Meat Markets, 1898, 2012. The bear's heart steams in the icehouse air, his hide a trophy on the pillars stretched, and the butcher's apron innocent as snow, his nails rimmed black with blood. His hide a trophy on the pillars stretched, the wildcat neatly packaged lurks, his claws rimmed black with blood, but placid beef and bacon wait for me. No wildcat neatly packaged lurks at Bill's Meats on the downtown street. Just placid beef and bacon wait for me. Now tamer meats for tamer days. At Bill's Meats on the downtown street, no bear's heart steams in the icehouse air. Now tamer meats for tamer days, and the butcher's apron, innocent as snow.
Craig, next photo.
This is a picture of two sisters, Agnes and Anna Johnson, who did laundry at the local logging camp. This is a photograph that really spoke to all of us as poets, and where most of the photographs will have 2 or 3, maybe 4 poems written to it. There's 6 of us who are going to read a poem to this one because we all really, it touched us all. And for me, I saw the two sisters and then the houses as metaphors for the sisters there. The hollow thump of wadded cloth chants as it beats the side of the galvanized tub and echoes across the blanched sky. Side by side, hands plunged into tepid water, scrubbed raw to wash stains and uncover white. The vacant words we speak past each other bounce off the glass when the sunlight shines on panes you bolted against the world, bleached curtains drawn tight. The pattern gray in silver flakes expose the door of my hearth. I beg you enter while the daylight bleeds in from the back window and halides absorb the dusk. I see past the dark, but I cannot reveal the closed eyes of my sister's core.
What I felt about this picture was that no matter where we are, we have a very unique role to play in the larger picture called life. Agnes and Anna. It's a long day. The choppers, skidders, and sawyers gone. Agnes and Anna sit down to pose, wash tubs in row. Pleasures are few and far between. Drapes drawn wide, perhaps this is the time of little escape from the demure mundane. Affection for community, fervor for rights, grange, library, quartet, purposeful delight. Salute this strength, uncommon resolute. A simple life, wrapped, treasured, to reaffirm posterity. They did sit down to pose, oh, they did. Gentle, calm, softly determined.
One of the things that we discussed when we were writing these poems was what is not in the picture. So in my poem, I talked about I'm writing about what happens before and what happens after this picture is taken. Wash day. She lays her wet hands in her lap, smiles vacantly into the camera. Film doesn't capture the sticky air or her stinging skin, raw and cold. She turns and sinks rag into bucket, soap plunging over thirsty fingers. Scrub, then wring it out. Shake loose the rain clouds hiding in its folds. There they lie, rags like tulips, opening into bloom as they bake beneath the sun.
So in looking at this picture, I was really struck, kind of like Maya, at what wasn't there, sort of the emptiness of it, and that really inspired this poem, which I called Empty. Child, there is a strange prison called Empty, and the jailers all around. It's in these floorboards, and the cold ground, and the windows, and the days. It's in that logger's eyes, and in some mother's lonesome look. You can try to fill it, but those shackles stay in place, oh, they do. Child, I knew Empty like Biggie Swindles know the federal pen. I knew Empty way back before, when everything knew Empty. All this was empty, all the people and the land and the house. Wash day and Sunday and payday and work day. Empty, empty, empty. Child, you get a strange yearning for empty when you've known it for so long, when the land gets filled by people who have fullness in their eyes, and the trees get felled for reason and for progress and for homes, and in their place are buildings that have smiles to fill the whole. The library we started, sure, that was my own doing, true, but you think back to the empty and you wonder if it's gone. Not for us, old timers, not for us, now that we see empty in the full.
We come from a long line of women who wring sheets. We come from a long line of women who wring sheets and sing songs. The long line of women who sort wet from dry tinder to feed fires. A long line of women who scrub grit, pine pitch, starch, iron, and fold. Women who find the good omen, make from scratch, feed the hobo, haul water out back, stitch and stir, bake and roast, elk, partridge, deer, grace before meals, children to school, every child's lunchbox full. The long line, librarians, teachers, nurses, and nuns, serving our town before there was the town, only the logging camp. Two of us not unlike any other sisters who share a bed. Whisper, you are not alone. Not unlike any other sisters who love and are loved.
This photograph gave me another character to listen to. Agnes and Anna were famous for their singing. In the Valley, they formed the Johnson Sisters Quartet. If you've been to the Happy Valley Grange, or if you go, you'll be somewhere where they stood and where they were members. Agnes Johnson, Logging Camp, 1905. We sang while we worked, my sister Annie and me. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. Most gals hate a wash day, and I admit when it was raining I wasn't fond of them either. But spring Mondays when the sun shined were my favorite days of the week. We always did the big washing together. We did for our own and took in wash from the camp. The extra money sure was welcome, but land, those boys could dirty up a shirt. The carbolic stung and the water scalded and you ached in every bone. And all those socks. Thank the Lord for naphtha soap is all I can say. Thank goodness for the porch being so high. It saved our backs putting the wash tubs where you didn't have to bend so. And thank goodness we had a ring or two or we would have had to do it all by hand. It saved a bit on ironing as well, although the thing seemed to eat buttons. Laundry ruined your hands something awful. No fine-fingered lady ever did her own wash. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. We sang hymns and songs we'd known as children coming up, old favorites and new ones. It was good when the work was heavy, which it near always was. Folks used to say, "You two should be on the stage." And we'd just color up and say, "I'll go on with you." But I admit we were that good. The suds went flat, but never Annie. Her voice was sweet and true. We sang. It made it less like work. Me on one end of a sheet and Annie on the other, laughing like we were girls in the middle of the clotheslines. We have it good now with automatic washers and spin dryers and such. But I tell you, sheets never smelled so sweet, nor a wash day ever go so fast as singing with my sister over a scrub board. I don't much like Mondays anymore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore. In the sweet by and by, we shall meet on that beautiful shore.
This is a picture of Cleveland Street with the bank and the Eagle Bar besides it. And today, the bank is Bradbest reality and it's still very much there. Bank. The pennies we save go in here every month. It's nice. No more writing off quarterly loans to Brad brothers who take with glee, but pretend money amnesia later. Today we are quaint, no one in sight. Wagons rest empty, trees refuse to stir. Just like the fancy brick building we adore, the largeness of the door, and the small unquiet at the stable and the bar. This precise click, we own the space. Cavaliers on a seamless dirt road. Coy smile, nervously content, we stand tight. 'Tis done. Sprint, little girls. Can you hear Mama calling out? The church bell goes. Hurry now.
Street corner. 4 girls are waiting outside Orson Wiley's bar in their Sunday best. No one is here to stare or ask why they linger near the telephone pole with its 2 high street signs, near the livery stable and the carriages outside. No one is here to brush the dust off their dresses and say, "Go, hurry home." No one to tell them the story of the bank next door, the one that was only robbed once. No one is here to escort them home. Perhaps they're waiting for something they'll never have.
I chose the letter poem to use as the form for me to understand the emotions possibly of a young woman, a recent settler. My dearest sister, today is clear and cold, and a week since I thought I'd lose the baby. Please don't worry. The midwife says everything will be fine. This past winter, I thought I'd lose my mind, though everyone warned me. Cabin fever, long dark days, rains that flood here in early November. By now, sis, I've slept through my first rainy season. Toppled trees, storm-tossed branches flung to the roof, the resinous rain woven into the warp and weft of my nightmares and dreams. The winds howl, the first little lullaby the little one will hear. Sometimes, middle of the night, to escape four walls, Darius gone a month on the sock, felling cedar stumps for shingle bolts, I open the cabin door and stand on the threshold to welcome the deluge. Our little Platte, like the muddy Missouri when we were girls, wading knee-deep across the ditch. To fetch eggs in the barn, I held your hand. Pa made us the oak plank he swore would last forever. Writing helps. Some things I didn't realize. Road of our town, all stone and mud, clots of mud alongside wagon ruts. One tree, dear to us, the townspeople let stand between Eagle's Tavern and the Redmond Bank, and I'm grateful. A newcomer trying to make a home, follow the path leading off the frame. Sister, no photograph is ever vast enough to capture a life, the hope I felt this morning when I came out of the dark woods into the clear cut, the baby kicking, four girls dressed in their Sunday best, standing in the muck like crocuses.
This is the interior of the Eagle Bar that we saw in the last picture, and it was advertised as Redmond's finest sample room. And I felt it was a place where everybody could shed their inhibitions. Emerge. A soiree inside a chrysalis, from whence men emerge with butterflied wings. Those moments when you think you are a king. This potion intoxicates, weaving magic. Lumber dust in oblivion, fairyland beckons. Ornate, polished, shining order, all discarded I will be. Look unto me, sweetest, a gentleman among gentlemen. Look he, I am him, emerged.
This one is called Eagle Bar. The lamps hum of secrets. Your fingers run along the dusty glass neck. Learn what it's like to taste recklessness on your lips. Feel freedom bubbling under your crisp collar. Every brim, every polished shoe is an act, a show, a mask to hide vulnerability. Outside, fireflies pool light and half-full bottles shatter on the steps. The air runs warm and sweet. Too sweet, perhaps. Raise the glass to your lips. Let go.
This was owned by Orson Wiley, who was one of 3 one-eyed bartenders in the city of Redmond at this time, which probably had a population of a couple hundred people. He called his bar the finest sample room in Redmond, and later during the Prohibition time or the dry era, there were rumors that he had tunnels underground to smuggle. I don't think that's been proved. What struck me most about this picture was not so much what's in the picture, but those who are missing from the picture. One Eye Blind in the Eagle Bar Saloon. Orson Wiley's finest sample room. Samples swilled from the one-eyed man, one eye watching half the world, the half that leans on reflective black, feet resting on the long brass bar. One eye blind to the unseen half. Home, waist tied tight with babbling babies and clinging children, demanding dinner while you, dressed in your bowler hat, stand staring at the camera. Defiant, clink, 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 coins clatter on polished black reflection. Traded for a Bentley, a glass of gentle fuzz, knocked back while we, knocked up, wait. Tile floor traded for worn wood, paste polished, while hips balance babies and children clutch beneath, and we beg dry, with eyes wide and black, reflecting our unseen half.
In a photograph like this, it's really easy to see different portions of it, and it really is a good example of how all of us got something else out of it. Now, what I fixated on was this guy in the front who looks to me like a salesman. And I got to wondering, well, what would it be like to be a salesman in 1915 and come to Redmond? This also is a formed poem. The form is a fairly new form called bop, and it's patterned after music, so it has stanzas and a refrain. The salesman at Wiley's bar. The salesman clumped in from the Redmond Hotel, wiped his shoes, mopped his brow, struck a pose, and said, "Well, I never did see such a town as this dell. It's too hard to get to and too hard to sell. Your dogs all bite and your women all yell. I'd rather be making my living in hell." And the chorus all sang, "By God, I'll drink. I'll surely drink to that." Why, the mud, it comes up to the tip of my nose, and the clouds cover all of the highs and the lows, and my breakfast was lost to a murder of crows, and my razor's all rusty. There's mold twixt my toes. There's more trouble out here than a man can oppose. How you fellas all manage, I cannot suppose. And the chorus all sang, "He's right, I'll drink. I'll surely drink to that." I'll admit that it's pretty like nothing I've seen, with the trees and the mountains, the lakes and the streams, but the days are too short and the nights are too mean, and I swear that last night I heard wildcatty screams. You could lose your life out here while chasing your dreams, and I think you're all crazy. At least that's how it seems. And the chorus fell quiet, and nobody sang that, by God, they'd drink to that. Then Wiley popped up. "Fella, finish that drink, because we've heard enough what you see, hear, and think. Here's your hat. What's your hurry? Like India ink, you're a blot on our evening. Now let's hear the clink of your coin on the counter, your glass in the sink, for your loud-mouthed opinions are starting to stink. And you never will know what it's like on the brink of the place where heaven and earth forge a link. We've been just fine without you. We won't even blink when you and your case and your samples all shrink to a dot in the distance. Buddy, you're on the brink of a poke in the nose and a night in the clink." And the chorus all sang, "Wiley, pour us a drink. By God, we'll all drink to that." Craig, next picture, please.
So this is a photo of Albert Magnuson. I think he's about 26 years old at the time of this photo. And so I imagine he was born in 1914 when my father was born. And What I thought about is, when I wrote this, was not wanting to sort of come at this as though he's this cocky, arrogant, taking this sort of stance, but maybe he's older and was able to live a long life as my father was, and is looking back at this and thinking in reverie of his boyhood, which would be way back. And so this is what I wrote, and I'm calling it Meditation for Albert Magnuson. When I awake from this dream, bird song, cedar scent, a sensory place. If I begin with shadow and light, I'm alive in the interlude of history. In 1,000 years, who'll remember boy with slingshot to hunt bear? I know only the topaz fox sunning on rocks, the bleached bones of the lynx, the tree where I carved my name.
Home. What do you see from up there, beyond the giant logs, corduroy roads, and the lumber mills? Children run, mothers with mellowed eyes follow, a weary-souled father trudging along, amid devastation and unknown, not to be destitute, not to conquer. For a meager platter, the extremes we descend to, unthinking, wary at the end. Where the dog led, the rifle fired. Fear quelled, we found home. Where is theirs? Where is theirs?
Can you see his dog? Can you see his dog? It's right there next to his gun. So, in this poem, I heard Albert Magnuson, dog owner and hunter. I remember that day. We were hunting grouse. He was a good dog, but stubborn. Damn dog wouldn't get up the stump. Wouldn't climb a step, but cried to get up. Oh, we coaxed. Come on, Clancy. Damn crying dog, nothing doing. We had to hoist him, cringe-backed, past that sawtooth tree bark, got up like a baby in a bundle. Then he wagged whip-tailed and licked my hands, run all over, almost off the edge. I'm surprised he didn't go on and whiz. Probably the cuss couldn't find a corner. Yep, there he sits like a damn duke, like the king of the woods, King Clancy, and me standing guard, gun and boots and swagger hat, king of the stumps. If I knew then. I don't remember what all game there was, how many we bagged that day. I just remember trying to get old Clancy up that stump. And then, damn it, working twice as hard to get him back down.
So this is an image of the Derby Days bike race from 1940, and right now this is along Leary Way. For this image, I tried to think about what this scene would look like from the viewpoint of one of these many bystanders along here. So this is from the viewpoint of a girl. Summer Derby. I am too warm in my plaid dress and Mary Jane's. Everything about this moment is uncomfortable. The way the street sign is too far above my head, the jumble of telephone wires crisscrossing out to nowhere. They call it progress. I call it messy work. It's not polite to complain, says my mother. I must be polite. Lady in training, prepped and primed for finishing school. I press my lips together and rock back and forth on the brink of the curb. The sun beats down on my back.
if you look at this picture, you can definitely tell where the center of the action is. It's right where the race is happening. Well, maybe it's my nearsightedness, but for some reason I looked everywhere except for where all the people are, the telephone wires, and especially at the Redmond Shoe Hospital. I was just incredibly intrigued by this concept of a hospital for shoes, and so that's what I wrote my poem about, Redmond Shoe Hospital. Their states of health are various. Some need mending, some need love. A few need new tongues or souls. Most need softer labor, their work too hard. The man with the monocle is inspecting another pair. Says the woman that brought them, the loss would crush me. And all those worn out boots by the door, well, sir, I hate to say it, but they're a lost cause. I still have to inform the family.
Redmond Derby Days Bike Race, 1940. Leary-way teens in saddle shoes and bobby socks hug the sidelines. Horizon a dug fir fringe of second growth. When summer was a feather breeze, 48 golden stars agleam on the American flag behind town. And to onlookers, look again. You are here to funnel the riders beyond the willows the early settlers loved, past Lake Sammamish, toward the trails of tomorrow. For now, a slim girl, maybe 7 or 9, nearly cropped from the frame, chin in her hand, bird-boned. Did she become the reporter her English teacher surmised, novelist, poet maybe, given a typewriter for high school graduation? Great auntie to nieces who cycle Beijing Olympics, win women's first soccer World Cup in Guangdong? No one wears a helmet, and that power pole is a totem with a street sign posted far too high for the bystanders to read. But when the motorcycle escort revs up, the message is clear: never give up. And when you can't imagine how you'll sit in the saddle for 26 miles, conjure the ancestors, known and unknown, who steered the old growth down greased skids, clearing the way for you.
So this picture from 1955 shows the Nike Missile Command that the United States Army maintained on top of Education Hill. Who here lives in Education Hill? See some raised hands. Okay, well maybe you knew that there were, during the 1950s, the Cold War, that there was this missile project going on. And for me, this picture really represented an intersection of the personal present as well as the family past. Because I live only a few blocks away from Nike Park. My sister and I went there to play all the time when I was younger. And when I found out that this area beyond the barbed wire fence at Nike Park had once housed these missiles of great destructive power, I was immediately incredibly intrigued. Now, coincidentally, this is a bit of a far stretch, but it was what kind of happened in my subconscious. The Nike Missiles Project was proposed by Bell Labs, and my grandfather worked there for many years. And while I'm sure he was never involved in anything having to do with those missiles, the idea for this poem arose from really thinking about this inspiration of grandparents and knitting needles. Needles. Peering through the barbed wire fence at them, she can't help but think that they sort of look like needles. Big, thick knitting needles poised on the edge of a new line of yarn. There's that quick flash to them, the poised potential, the suspense in the second when Grandma pauses knitting, and you know that when she starts, it'll go, 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 no stopping. And you know that when these start, they'll go and go, no stopping. Except Grandma makes things, brings fragments, fabric, yarn together. And these are Grandpa's clumsy knitting needles, poised on the edge like they are about to tear, rip, break the fabric apart.
I had trouble with this image. I wanted to do something very badly, and there was something about it that was difficult for me. And I finally decided to write something that was not just about Redmond, but that was about all of us and about war. Cold. Every war is a cold war. The necessary ice in the eyes, the bloodless hand on the club, on the arrow, the gun butt, the button, the careful calculus of destruction, the ashes after the conflagration, the blood drying on the ground. There is no warmth in fear, no tender welcoming gaze, no beckoning hand. What if we lay down our spears and they hurl theirs into our midst? What if they bend us, break us, own us with the cold master's justice and the cold conqueror's heart? And so we tell ourselves eye for eye, tooth for tooth, and snarl our way into the cool and neutral air, coldly observing the fiery point of impact far away from our own house, our own children, our own warm and welcoming hearth, where we sing lullabies about loving one another and tell stories about the boogeyman out there in the cold of the night.
This is our final photo for the evening. This is an image of the Sammamish River and the sleigh races there in 1956. Dark. The sun glimmers on trembling water, and we wait anxiously, lean over the soggy bridge. This morning's rain still lingers in the way the air creeps slithery onto your tongue, still lingers in the listless clouds drifting apart. Any second now, people whisper. The rumor swishes around the crowd. Any second now, we might see boat sizzle across slough, fanning white water behind. They come, and so do the shouts from our lips. They come in vests and jackets, but we are too far up to know who's who. So we pretend we know who's in the lead. They go too quickly, a parade of rafts skimming the river. Come, we say, picking up our coats. We turn. Let's go.
Day at the races. Sluicing by the swamp grass that grows on the brink of the sodden stream. Steps from the footbridge, the swarming throngs of young men dream of narrow boats that zip away from the windmill and slice the spine of the slough, splashing its murky spray as they rocket past the present.
That day in Bothell at the end. That day in Bothell at the end, I saw it in your eyes, that sort of scary something. There's something that makes you want to lose yourself in the thrill. If you could succumb completely to the way the careen of a sudden turn feels, live your life as fast as the world rushes past you, leave as loud and big a mark as the ephemeral white spray behind the boat pummeling the water's edge, peppering the onlookers whose giggles barely reach you in that beautiful brief second before the ripples cease, the fishes rise, and quietude settles on the river like you were never racing there. If you could fire your veins on the charge of the stampede, live life so much simpler with the need of just one thing, to win, would you?
So this is our last poem connected with this particular photo, and then Rebecca will conclude. What I wanted to share is that we thought a lot about the slough, and this particular photo took me to beyond this particular event. And perhaps the slough in itself represented a metaphor for what it is to seek history in a town and uncover so many stories that are partial stories, that haven't even been told now. And as I think about the future and my two granddaughters that are here tonight, I think they and the children like them will be the ones that will delve in and be the storytellers, the historians, to gather and piece together many, many stories. For example, the one about James Benjamin Martin, Civil War veteran, who came here 7 years after the war ended, and there was this opportunity for veterans who fought in the Civil War to homestead. So he was one of a handful that came out to the Redmond area before it was Redmond. And I really wanted to know about him and felt like piecing together fragments of the history that I could find, along with time to reflect, which is part of what it is to be a poet, would help me. I did write that poem, but I'm also going to tonight share a different one, and that is one about a man that I know who was born here in 1932. I grew up in California, but he came to live in California and met my family. Mel Kerwin went on to be a Navy jet pilot and become a lawyer. But he sent me a few months back, when he knew I was doing this project, a little anecdote about his life, and I wove it into this poem. So I bring it to us here, connected to the slough. A farm near the slough for Mel Kerwin, born in Redmond in 1932. There was a farm near the slough, blackberries along the fence in September. And when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, I was 9 years old. Blackberries along the fence, Redmond, a dairy town. And when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, our population was 526, 3,000 in the Corps. Redmond, a little town in Washington State, beyond the field, fern and nettle, the willow I climbed. Townspeople fearful Japanese troops would march south, cross the U.S. border, down from Canada, beyond fern and nettle, the willow I climbed. Townspeople fearful, the whole town dark, regular air raid alarms, blackout curtains to cover windows, observation tower scanning skies. For enemy planes, blackout curtains covered our house windows, and I knew I wanted to fly, become a pilot, houses empty of laughter and song, Japanese Americans waiting at train stations, dishes washed, dried, and stowed away, my classmates from Redmond, boys I knew from Bellevue, houses empty of song and laughter, dishes washed, dried, and stowed away, blackberries along the fence in September.
Well, this ends our program, and it also ends my tenure as Redmond's first Poet Laureate. I recommend the job. It made me intimately aware of what it means to use this wonderful art, not just as a means of self-expression, but as a tool to teach and honor and persuade. So whomever thought up the idea back when Petrarch was first named back in 1341, they knew what they were doing. It rocks. I'd like to thank everybody, all of you. I'd like to thank the city of Redmond for its faith in me and in poetry, and the various arts commissioners and administrators that made the job a real joy. And most currently, Joshua Heim and Craig Sinclair, who have been manning everything here tonight and really worked hard with all of us to bring this program into being. I've never heard of another one like it, and it's made me proud. And last, of course, I want to thank the poets who are here with me tonight. There may be and should be a future Poet Laureate among them, so please help me thank them. I am going to close with one last poem written to this image, but before I do, I have to say something. We made a mistake. In the book that we published, there is a beautiful little poem called Sparks. It was written by Adora Svitak. and it was credited to R.T. John. I happen to have a Sharpie in my bag somewhere, and I'm going to ask Adora to sign that poem for me so that her name gets to appear on the page with it, and my Sharpie is available to anybody if you would like to do the same. I wanted to close with this because this is a 100-year photo. This is what Redmond was like 100 years ago. And I wanted to also close with just a little bit of forward looking and about what it means to be a town. Incorporation, Redmond, Washington, 1912 to 2012. This place is no longer just where mudded roads meet. This place is a town, a home, the place where you are from. You put your money and your dead here for safekeeping because you know both you and it will be here tomorrow. You raise up your children here, knowing that in some quiet corner of themselves they will live here always. This place is a meeting place for daughters on their way to school and lovers on their way to church, where friends set out on adventures together and enemies play out their hate and fear. This is a place where the rupture of laughter spills out of bars and banks and barns, and where the hard work of the everyday comes looking for you when you've laughed too long. This place has sawn a future from the deep wood of the past, hauling its longing and its hope behind it like a plow, and praying they will lift them beyond it like a sail. The people of this town step off the careful pathways now just long enough to leave temporary footprints in the disappearing mud before setting off once more toward a tomorrow only they can see. This place, this town is a destination and a destiny, as all towns are, but this one's yours. Take care of one another. There are actually 8 of us on this stage. You'll note we have had R.T.'s baby in mind all this time. We hope she becomes a poet. Thank you, guys. Enjoy being